Vandeham Shri Guru.
Nitai Gaura Chanda.
यदि प्रभुपाद होइतो तबे की होइतो ए जीवन बाहित किसे निताय गौरेरा अपार करुणा केदित सकल देशे निताय गौरेरा.
Anyone who would have followed Srila Prabhupada and follow the Hare Krishna movement, or have a little idea of the Hare Krishna movement, you will learn that a man at the age of 69, 70, you may say hitchhike or boomer ride on Jaladuta from Calcutta to Boston in 1965. He didn't came with an Air India flight, but suffered 2 heart attacks and seasickness, and then had no friend or anyone. He don't know where he was going, but by the order of his spiritual master, since 1922, which will mark 100 years next year, that his spiritual master ordered him take the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking country, and that was all. That was all his conviction and his faith. So that is the personality that we are celebrating, his 125th.
We live not with standing our wishes. We are merely custodians in this life, and we cannot avoid the path of death. Numerous sages, wise men, and founders of religions have paused on their path of life. The question and answer is, my body and mind and heart, my life and ideals are hastening towards the ideal destination. I think these questions is what motivated and inspired Srila Prabhupada to take the course that he took. And if all of us take a similar outlook towards life, we can leave a great legacy to our children and our children's children. So as we celebrate 125 years, it is a time when we need to make certain that our lives are lived with that strength and with that dignity, so that maybe another 100 or 200 years from now, our children and our children's children could look back at this time, yes, look back at this time and said this was truly a blessed generation.
And so this morning, it gives me the greatest pleasure on behalf of the university, and I guess on behalf of all people who teach in this country, to congratulate you on your wonderful work here, and of course to celebrate with you on the 125th anniversary of your great founder. And I'm blessed this morning to be here because I think I speak with a voice of many teachers at a place where a teacher is being revered this morning. And to say that because teachers really are the influencers of the future, that this work is really, really significant. It is also significant that the temple should recognize the worth and value of all people, all religions. This is a fundamental principle in our own country. And this question of unity and peace and mutual respect, I believe, is wonderful.
He was a great soul, he was a great saint. And we can't imagine that a saint who traveled from India at the age of 69 to US has been able to establish so many centers, so many temples, and has been able to create such an impact and value on the society overseas. And what he did when he was trying to travel from Calcutta to Boston, Mrs. Sumati Morarji, who was the head of the shipping company, she said, "No, gentlemen, you cannot travel. You are very old and your health looks very fragile." But he insisted he will go. And what he come to US was merely an umbrella, one umbrella, $20 and few religious books, nothing else. Imagine the impact and value he has created after coming to America and visiting so many places. During the short tenure, I say from 69, it was in 1965, and he left this world in 1977. Little less than 12 years, the ISKCON movement has spread so fast, and it has created a value among all the citizens of the world that is really commendable.
Over the ages, there have been countless teachers of Vedic wisdom from the land of India. But among them, Srila Prabhupada Ji holds a unique position for his unparalleled achievement in distributing bhakti across the world without any discrimination of caste, race, color, nationality, or ethnicity. For the benefit of humanity, it is vital that the world takes cognizance of his life and teachings and develops an appreciation for them. For millennia, the teachings and the rich culture of Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness has been mostly within the borders of India. Today, millions across the globe have been enlightened, and they express their sincere gratitude to Srila Prabhupada Ji for revealing the timeless wisdom of bhakti to the world. Among the 7 purposes of ISKCON, which were elucidated by Srila Prabhupada Ji, I am very impressed with 2. One is, of course, systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to the society at large, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, to check the imbalance of values in life, and to achieve real unity and peace in the world, which is very important. And of course, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simple and more natural way of life.
Srila Prabhupada has certainly been one of the outstanding human beings of the last century. And that he was able to do that and made his most phenomenal impact within 12 years in the United States of America, and when he was about 70 years and above. The circumstances under which he was able to accomplish that which he accomplished. The speed at which he was able to do it, the mammoth and phenomenal impact that he was able to have across race, across cultural barriers, across geographic expanse, all allude, in my respectful view, to the innate spirituality and divinity that is so deeply connected with Sri Prabhupada and his teachings. And I want to congratulate the faction here in Guyana who have been so vibrant and who have been so active in perpetuating and continuing the great tradition that Sri Prabhupada had started. We in Guyana are indeed fortunate to have a grouping of people so endowed and so committed. Look at the majesty of this edifice alone, and it tells you how convicted and how devoted the Guyanese faction of this movement is.
It could not be by coincidence that Srila Prabhupada would have realized that there was a gap in the world. And what was the gap? What did he establish as the foundation of the legacy that he would leave? Education. Developing a fertile mind. Using education to change the misconceptions. Using education to elevate people. Using education to change an existing mindset that saw hate, that saw envy. Then what? Not only establishing education, but a publishing house. Why was a publishing house so important to him? Because he could not depend on the existing framework and infrastructure to publish what were his teachings. So it became necessary that he build the infrastructure to publish. And then what? Food security. Food security. Not in an environment, global food security. That is what the spiritual consciousness led him to do. Establish the framework to achieve these things. Global food security. But that was not all. Building and development of communities. Building and development of communities. Very, very, very essential and very, very important.
Krishna Kirtana Ganana Karnapakau Premamrita Vanidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Krishna
धन्यवाद माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी। और अब मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी से विनम्रतापूर्वक करबद्ध आग्रह करती हूँ कि कृपया अपने प्रेरणादायक शब्दों द्वारा हमारा मार्गदर्शन करें।
हरे कृष्णा। आज के इस पुण्य अवसर पर हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे देश के संस्कृति मंत्री,
प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द ISKCON ब्यूरो, respected Mr. Gopal Krishna Goswami, and all our friends, Krishna devotees who have joined us on this sacred occasion from different countries across the world. Day before yesterday, we celebrated Janmashtami, the birth of Krishna, and today we are celebrating the 125th birth anniversary of Srila Prabhupada Ji. This is like experiencing at the same time the happiness and satisfaction that we get from meditation. It is this emotion that millions of followers of Srila Prabhupada Swami and millions of Krishna devotees are feeling and experiencing today. I can see all of you on the screen in front of me, devotees from different countries. It feels like hundreds of thousands of minds are united with one emotion. Hundreds of thousands of bodies are linked with each other through a common consciousness. This is that Krishna consciousness, the awareness and light of which Prabhupada Swamiji spread across the world. Friends, we all know that Prabhupada Swami was a charismatic Krishna devotee, but he was also at the same time a great patriot of India. He took part in India's freedom struggle. He even refused to take his diploma from the Scottish College to support the non-cooperation movement. Today, it is a happy coincidence that the 125th birth anniversary of such a great patriot is taking place at a time when India is celebrating Amrit Mahotsav, the 75th anniversary of its independence. Srila Prabhupada Swami used to always say that the reason he traveled to different countries of the world was because he wanted to share with the world India's invaluable treasure. The spirit of India's knowledge and science, our life culture and traditions, the spirit of these have always been Atha Bhut Dayam Prati. This means only for living beings, only for the welfare of all living beings. The last mantra of our ceremonial rituals is always Idam Namamam. This means this is not mine. This is for the entire universe. This is for the benefit of all creation. Therefore, seeing in him the potential, the respected Guru of Swamiji, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, instructed him to take India's thought process and philosophy to the world. Srila Prabhupada Ji made his Guru's instructions his mission, and The results of his devotion and hard work can now be seen in every corner of the world. During this event that represents the elixir of the energy of India's freedom, India too, with its slogan, inclusive efforts for collective gain with everyone's trust, has made such determined decisions a basis for its onward journey. At the heart of our resolve, the very basis for our targets, is the spirit of global welfare. And all of you are aware how important collective efforts are for us to fulfill these goals of ours. If Prabhupada Ji alone was able to give so much to the world, then when we all work together with his blessings, you can imagine what we can achieve. We will definitely reach that peak of human consciousness which will enable us to play an even greater role in the world and spread the message of love to every human being. Friends, yoga is an example that demonstrates how much India can give the world for the benefit of humanity. We can see today that across the world, our yoga traditions are becoming popular. We are resolved to ensure that the entire world benefits from the sustainable lifestyle that we follow in India, from sciences that we have, like Ayurveda. India has made the mantra of self-sufficiency that Srila Prabhupada Ji often used to discuss, its mission. And the country is moving forward in that direction. Often, when I talk about our goals to achieve a self-sufficient India and to make in India, I give my officials and businessmen the example of the success of the ISKCON movement. Whenever we go to another country, and when people greet us there with a Hare Krishna, then we feel such a great feeling of belonging. We feel such pride. Just imagine when people have the same feeling of affinity for made in India products, how we will feel. Learning from ISKCON, we can achieve these goals as well. Friends, Lord Krishna had said to Arjun, Nahi gyanen sadasham pavitra mihi vidyate. This means that nothing is as pure as knowledge. After giving this supremacy, this importance to knowledge, he said one other thing. Mayeva man adhastasva, mayi buddhim niveshay. This means that after acquiring knowledge and science, we must dedicate our minds and intellect to Krishna. We must dedicate them to devotion to Him. This belief, this strength too is a kind of yoga which has been described in the 12th chapter of the Gita as a Bhakti Yoga. And this Bhakti Yoga is very powerful. India's history too bears witness to this. When India was stuck in the deep pit of slavery, the India that was suffering from injustice, atrocities, and exploitation was not able to focus on its knowledge and power. Then it was this devotion that kept India's consciousness alive and kept India's identity intact.
Today, scholars try to assess that if it wasn't for the social revolution during the era of Bhakti, we don't know where India would be today and in what form. However, in those difficult times, great saints like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought our society together with the spirit of Bhakti and gifted us with the mantra of Vishwas and Atma Vishwas, which means faith and self-confidence, faith-based discrimination, social superiority and inferiority, the privileged and the unprivileged. Bhakti removed all of these and established a direct relation between living beings and God. Friends, if you study the history of India, you will discover that in order to maintain this connection to Bhakti, all through the different eras and times, many rishis and maharishis and sages came into the society. At one time, a sage like Swami Vivekananda came into our society who took our knowledge of the Vedic scriptures to the West. Similarly, when it was time to gift the world with Bhakti Yoga, it was Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON who took on the responsibility. He worked towards bringing Bhakti Vedanta together with the consciousness of the world. This was no ordinary work. He started the ISKCON mission at the age of around 70, at a time when most people start decreasing their scope of daily work and tasks. This is an inspiration for our society and for each person. Oftentimes we see people say, I'm too old now, or I would have done a lot, or now is not the right age for all this work. But Prabhupada Swami always remained active towards his resolves from childhood right through his entire life. Prabhupada ji sailed on a ship to America, and at that time, with hardly a penny in his pocket, and all he had was the Gita and the Srimad Bhagavat as his wealth. On the way, he even had 2 heart attacks. This is during his trip. When he arrived in New York, he had no means of getting a meal and no place to stay. But in the next 11 years, what the world witnessed is, if I were to use the words of Honorable Atalji, what Honorable Atalji said about him was, what he has done was nothing less than a miracle. Today, there are hundreds of ISKCON temples and several gurukuls in various countries across the world that keep the Indian culture alive. ISKCON has taught the world that in India, faith, astha, means exaltation, enthusiasm, and exhilaration, and faith in humanity. Today, often in countries across the world, we can see people doing kirtan, dressed in Indian attire. Their clothes are simple. They have musical instruments like dholak and manjira in their hand, and they are singing songs of Lord Krishna, and we can see that these devotees are filled with inner peace. Onlookers might think that maybe this is a festival or some kind of special function, but here in our society, this kirtan, this function, and singing devotional songs are an integral part of our lives. This joyous form of faith has constantly been attracting people all over the world. And this happiness is giving new hope to this stress-ridden world. Friends, in the Gita, Lord Krishna says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitraha karuna evacha nirmamo nirhankara sama dukh sukha kshami. Meaning that who loves life form, has a feeling of compassion and affection for them, doesn't hold a grudge against anyone, is God's beloved. It is this very mantra that has been the basis of India's thinking for thousands of years. And the base of this thinking has been done by our temples. ISKCON temples have emerged as the modern center of this very tradition. I remember when there was an earthquake in the Kutch region, how the people of ISKCON came forward to serve the people. Whenever our country has faced any calamity, whether it is the tragedy in Uttarakhand or the destruction caused by cyclones in Odisha and Bengal, ISKCON has supported the society. Even during the corona pandemic, you have been always arranging for food and other essentials for patients, their family members, and immigrants. Besides the pandemic also, you have been relentlessly providing food and support to hundreds of thousands of poor. I am regularly updated about how ISKCON has made hospitals for COVID patients and now are also participating in vaccination programs. I express my deep appreciation to ISKCON and all the devotees in ISKCON for your service and sacrifice. Friends, today, with the mantra of Satya Seva or Sadhana, which means truth, service and meditation, not only are you serving Lord Krishna, but are also playing the role of brand ambassadors of Indian ideals and culture to the whole world. India's eternal culture or sacrament is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Nirmayaha. This thinking has become the resolve of you and of hundreds of thousands of people through ISKCON. Love for the Lord and to see God in living beings is the only path for fulfillment of this resolve. It is this path that the Lord has told us about in the Vibhuti Yoga chapter. We firmly believe that we will not only practice this mantra of Vasudevaha Sarvam in our lives, but will also make mankind aware of it. With this spirit, I thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.